It says there's nobody here. Oh my god. It literally says 0. All right, I'll wait. I gotta wait for Artsy anyways. There you go. I have that in there for you, Artsy. If you'll heal. It's such a beautiful day outside. It's really nice. Not too hot either. Just waiting for Artsy. There she is. Hey.
Hi, I'm here.
What is up?
Hi, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there is an echo. I had my YouTube still open on the other tab.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
okay.
I fixed it.
All right. Well, I guess I'll just get into it. Do you have any videos or anything you want me to show? I think Brittany sent me one. And so did Mare, so I might play one if it's not too long at the end.
Okay. I don't have anything planned.
Yeah.
If you come across a part where I remember in the book where it's part of a clip from somewhere, then I'll see if I can find it while you're reading. But that's what I did last time.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty, have a simple water. Hey, Michelle. All right, December 9th to the 12th, 1969. Neither Aaron nor I logged the calls we received, but it would be a safe guess that we were getting upward of 100 a day, to most of which our only response was no comment. The press was frantic. Although the indictments had been made public, the grand jury transcript itself had been sealed. It would remain secret until a week to 10 days after the last defendant was arraigned. It was rumored that one magazine offered $10,000 just to look at a copy. Hey, Sue. An officer, Thomas Drinan, called from Oregon. He had arrested Susan Atkins in 1966 as part of a holdup gang. At the time, she had been carrying a 25 caliber pistol and had told Drinan that if he had drawn first, she would have shot and killed him. At this stage of the investigation, such information had no relevance. There was always a chance, however, that it might be useful later, and I made a note of his name and telephone number. My cubicle in the Hall of Justice measured 20 feet by 10 feet, the furnishings consisting of a battered desk, a rickety cot brought in for cat naps at lunch hour, a filing cabinet, a couple of chairs, and a large table, usually piled high with transcripts and exhibits. A reporter once described the decor as 1930 Chicago. At that, I was lucky. Since the other WDAs had to share their offices, when I had a witness to interview, I had to drive everyone else out, not always diplomatically. That left the phone, which since none of us had secretaries, we had to answer ourselves. Each day brought new developments. Thus far, although sheriff's deputies had dug up a sizable portion of Spawn Ranch, no trace of the remains of Donald Shorty Shea had been found. However, acting on the information supplied by Mary Brunner, LASO searched the neighborhood adjacent to 20910 Gresham Street, Canoga Park, and found just around the corner from the former family residence Shea's 1962 Mercury. It was dirt covered and Rain Street, apparently having been abandoned some months before. Inside the vehicle was a footlocker containing Shea's personal effects. Dusting it, LASO found a set of palm prints, which were later matched to family member Bruce Davis. Shea's cowboy boots were also in the car. They were caked with dry blood. Independence, California, 4 p.m., December 9th. Charles Miles Manson. aka Jesus Christ. Age 35, address transient, occupation musician, was charged with the Tate LaBianca murders. Sartucci and Gurtez were bringing him to Los Angeles. Hey, Rachel. Yeah, I don't know. YouTube's being weird. They are unsubbing people and they're not giving us notifications. I wish they'd get it fixed. We scheduled Manson's arraignment on a different date than that of the other defendants, fearing that if Atkins and Mankins met in the courtroom, he'd persuade her to repudiate her testimony. A reporter located Susan Atkins' father in San Jose. He said he didn't believe this claim that Susan was under the hypnotic spell of Manson. I think she's just trying to talk her way out of it. She's sick and she needs help. According to the reporter, Mr. Atkins blamed Susan's involvement on her use of drugs and the leniency of the courts. He said he tried for 3 years to get the courts to keep his rebellious daughter off the streets. Had they done so, he implied, this may not have happened. Hey, Brittany. For Susan, I realized that family was her only family. I understood now why Caballero felt it was only a matter of time before she returned to the fold. On December 10th, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Leslie Van Houten were brought before Judge William Keene. All three requested and were granted continuances before entering pleas. This was the first time I had seen Kasabian. She was short, about 5'1", with long, dark blonde hair and green eyes, and was obviously pregnant. She looked older than 20. In contrast to Susan and Leslie, who smiled and giggled through most of the proceedings, Linda seemed on the edge of tears. Following the grand jury hearing, Judge Keene had called Aaron and me into the chambers. At that time, he told us that since the DA's office was not discussing the case with the press, he saw no need to issue a publicity order, or as it is most often called, a gag order, covering the case. However, owing to the incredible amount of pretrial publicity, a New York Times reporter told me that already it had far exceeded that given the first Sam Shepard trial. Judge Keene, without consulting our office, now went ahead and issued a detailed publicity order. Later amended several times. It would run to a dozen pages. In essence, it forbade anybody connected with the case, prosecutors, defense attorneys, police officers, witnesses, and so forth, to discuss the evidence with any representative of the media. Hey, Nana. Though unknown to me at the time, the order was already too late to prevent an inside account of the murders from making headlines around the world. The previous evening, attorney Richard Caballero, acting on a basis of the agreement with Susan Atkins, had arranged the sale of the publication rights to her story. Call from LAPD. Charles Koenig, an attendant at the Standard Service Station at 1281 Encina Boulevard in Sylmar, was cleaning the women's restroom when he noticed the toilet was running. Lifting the lid off the tank, he found on top of the mechanism, damp but above the waterline, a woman's wallet. He checked the driver's license and credit cards, saw the name Rosemary LaBianca, and immediately called LAPD. Sid was checking the wallet for prints, but because of both the material and the dampness, they doubted they'd find any. Just the discovery of the wallet was enough for me, for it provided another piece of independent evidence supporting Susan Atkins' story. Apparently, the wallet had been there, undiscovered, since Linda Kasabian placed it there the night of the LaBianca murders, exactly 4 months ago. At 11 a.m. on December 11th, buckskin-clad Charles Manson was brought before Judge William Keene. The courtroom was so packed with reporters and spectators, you couldn't have squeezed another person in with a shoehorn. Since Manson lacked funds to hire an attorney, Keene appointed Paul Fitzgerald of the Public Defender's Office to represent him. I'd come up against Paul before in several jury trials and knew he had a good reputation in his office. Manson was arraigned and a postponement granted until December 22nd for the entering of his plea. In Independence, Sandra Good had told me that once. In the desert, Charlie had picked up a dead bird, breathed on it, and the bird had flown away. Sure. Sandy, sure, I replied. Since then, I heard a great deal about Manson's alleged powers. Susan Atkins, for example, felt he could see and hear everything she did or said. Hey, Tammy. Oh my God, you guys make me laugh. That's good. Midway through the arraignment, I looked at my watch. It had stopped. Odd, it was the first time I could remember that happening. Then I noticed that Manson was staring at me, a slight grin on his face. It was, I told myself, simply a coincidence. Hey, Catherine. Following the arraignment, Paul Fitzgerald told Braun Enstos, veteran crime reporter for the Los Angeles Times, there's no case against Manson and these defendants. All the prosecution has are 2 fingerprints and Vince Bugliosi. Fitzgerald was right about our case being weak, but I didn't intend that it should remain that way. Nearly 3 weeks ago, I'd given the Tate detectives, Calkins and McGann, an initial list of things to do, among which were to interview Terry Melcher, check the prints of every known family member against the unmatched Tate Laytons, show photographs of family members to friends and relatives of the victims, determine if the glasses belonged to anyone in the family. I called in Calkins and McGann and asked for a progress report. I learned that only one of the things on the list had been done. Melcher had been interviewed by the La Bianca detectives. To date, LAPD hadn't even begun looking for the Tate weapons and clothing. Those Susan Atkins statements gave us some good clues as to the general area where they should be. Arrangements were made through our office for Susan to be taken to Sybil Brand the following Sunday to see if she could point out the spots where Linda Kasabian had thrown the various items. Fitzgerald was not the only one who felt we had no case. The consensus in the DA's office and the Los Angeles legal community, which I picked up from many sources, usually with some such remark as, "Too bad you had to get involved in such a bummer," was that the case against Manson and most of the other defendants would be thrown out on 1118 motion. Under Section 11181 of the California Penal Code, at the end of the people's case, the court feels the prosecution had failed to put on enough evidence to sustain a conviction on appeal. The judge is empowered to acquit the defendants. They aren't even required to put on a defense to the charges. Some felt it wouldn't even get that far. Newsweek quoted an unnamed Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney as saying that our case against Manson was so anemic that it would be thrown out even before we went to trial. Such talk, in addition to the national exposure that would be accorded any defense attorney connected with the case, was, I suspected, the reason Manson was having so many visitors at the Los Angeles County Jail. As one deputy sheriff put it, it's like a bar association convention over here. Between December 11, 1969 and January 21, 1970, Manson had 237 separate visits, 139 of them which were by one or more attorneys. Among the first lawyers to call on him were Ira Reiner, Day Shin, and Ronald Hughes, none of whom I knew at that time, though I'd know all three much better before the trial ended. Hey, SD. What? Your brother got Manson tattooed on his shoulder now that he's an adult. He regrets it. I bet. Oh my God.
That's like right up there with like getting a tattoo of Hitler or something.
Right? Who the hell does that?
Different, not the same scale of evil, but evil. Yeah.
Damn. At least now you can get rid of them with that laser treatment or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
Catherine says, my daughter went at 14, got a tattoo on her hip of a boy. I predicted she barely would recall his name. I went to all the shops, like in Rage Mama, nonetheless threatening someone pay for laser removal.
Oh.
Rumors multiplied like bacteria. One was that prior to the imposition of the gag order, Caballero had sold Atkins' story to a European press syndicate with the stipulation that the story was not to be released in the United States until after the grand jury transcript was made public. If true, I seriously doubted if American papers would respect such an agreement. There were bound to be leaks. December 14th, 1969. I didn't have to look for a newsstand that sold foreign papers. When I got up that Sunday morning, I needed only to walk out the front door, reach down, and pick up the Los Angeles Times. Susan Atkins' story of 2 nights of murder. The story covered nearly 3 pages. Though obviously edited and rewritten with some additional material on her childhood, it was essentially the same story Susan Atkins had related on the tape made in Caparello's office. Not until the trial itself would the story behind the story come out. The following is reconstructed from the courtroom testimony. I can make no claim as to its accuracy, only that this is what the various participants testified under oath. Before the imposition of the gag order, Lawrence Schiller, a self-described Hollywood journalist and communicator, approached Richard Caballero and his law associate Paul Caruso, asking if they would be interested in selling Susan Atkins' first-person account of the murders. After consulting with Susan, an agreement was reached, and a ghost, Los Angeles Times reporter Jerry Cohen, on leave of absence from the paper, was hired to write the account. Schiller, though listed as co-author, not only didn't write the story, he never even met Susan Atkins. According to evidence introduced during the trial, the terms of the agreement were 25% to Schiller, of the remaining 75%, 60% to Susan Atkins, and 40% to attorneys. Using as his main source on December 1st tape, Cohen completed the story in just 2 days, while locked in a room in Schiller's home. To make sure he maintained exclusivity, Schiller saw that Cohen had neither carbon paper nor access to a phone, and he destroyed all but the finished draft. Hey, screaming to ether. I don't mean either, Tammy. I think I scared a few Hell's Angels with my display of Mama lying in his closet. Oh, I bet. You go, Mama. I would have done the same. 9 years old? Are you kidding me? According to their subsequent courtroom testimony, Cavarello and Caruso understood that initially the story was to appear in Europe only, with a publication date of Sunday, December 14th. According to Schiller, on December 12th, he made the 3 Xerox copies of the manuscript. One was given to Cavarello, one to a German editor who had bought the rights for his magazine and who translated it as he flew back to Germany, and the third flown by a special courier to the London News of the World, which had paid $40,000 for the exclusive English rights. Schiller put the original in his own safe. The following day, Saturday, December 13th, Schiller learned that the Los Angeles Times also had a Xerox copy of the manuscript and that the Times intended to run it in full the following day, screaming copyright infringement. Schiller tried unsuccessfully to stop the publication. Exactly how the Los Angeles Times obtained the story remains unknown. During the trial, Cavarello more than hinted that he suspected Schiller, while Schiller attempted to put the blame on Cavarello. Whatever the ethics of the whole matter, the Atkins story created immense problems which would plague both the defense and the prosecution throughout the trial. The story was not only reprinted in newspapers all over the world. Even before the trial started, it appeared as a paperback book titled The Killing of Sharon Tate, published by the New American Library, which is owned by the Times-Mirror Company, which also owns the Los Angeles Times. It was held by some that the Atkins revelations would make it impossible for the defendants to obtain a fair trial. Although neither Aaron nor I, nor eventually the trial judge, shared this view, we were all too aware from the moment the story broke that finding 12 jurors who hadn't read or heard of the account and then keeping any mention of it out of the courtroom itself would be a difficult task. Few of the Angelinos who read Susan Atkins' story in the Times that Sunday were aware that she was, at the time, riding around Los Angeles and its environs in a nondescript, though heavily guarded, automobile. We were hoping she would point out the places where the clothing and the weapons had been discarded following the Tate murders. On returning to Civil Brand that night, Susan wrote a letter to a former cellmate, Kit Fletcher, in which she told of her excursion. My attorney is great. He has had me out to his office twice, and today he got me out for 7 hours. We went riding in a car up to the Tate mansion and through the canyons. The LAPD wanted me to see if I could recall where certain things happened. It was such a beautiful day, my memory vanished. As in most jails, the mail at Sybil Brand was censored, both letters received and letters sent being read by the authorities. Those which contained what appeared to be incriminating statements were photocopied and given to our office. Under existing case law, this could be done without violating a prisoner's constitutional rights. Susan was in a letter-writing mood. Several of her letters contained damaging omissions which, unlike her grand jury testimony, could be used against her on trial, if we chose to do so. To Joe Stevenson, a friend in Michigan, she'd write on the 13th. You remember the Sharon Tate murder and the LaBianca murder? Well, because of my big mouth to a cellmate, they just indicted me and 5 other people. Spelling and punctuation errors in the Atkins letters are as in the originals. Oh, okay. Even more incriminating and revealing was a kite Susan sent Ronnie Howard. In jail parlance, a kite is an illegal communication. The letter which Susan smuggled to Ronnie via the underground at Sybil Brand reads as follows. I can see your side of this clearly, nor am I mad at you. I am hurt in a way only I understand. I blame no one but myself for even saying anything to anybody about it. Yes, I wanted the world to know, it sure looks like they do now. There was a so-called motive behind all this. It was to instill fear into the pigs and to bring on Judgment Day, which is here now for all. In the word kill, the only thing that dies is the ego. All ego must die anyways. It is written. Yes, it could have been your house. It could have been my father's house also. In killing someone physically, you are only releasing the soul. Life has no boundaries, and death is only an illusion. If you can believe in the second coming of Christ, she can't spell words shit. If you can believe in the second coming of Christ, is he who has come to save. Maybe this will help you to understand. I did not admit to being the second house because I was not in the second house. I went before the grand jury because my attorney said your testimony was enough to convict me and all the others. He also said it was my only chance to save myself. Then I was out to save myself. I've gone through some changes since then. I know now it has all been perfect. Those people died not out of hate or anything ugly. I am not going to defend our beliefs. I'm just telling you the way it is. As I write to you, I feel more at ease inside. When I first heard you were the informer, I wanted to slit your throat. Then I snapped that I was the real informer and it was my throat I wanted to cut. Well, that's all over with now as I let the past die away from my mind. You know it will all turn out okay in the end anyway. M or no M, Sadie or no Sadie, love will still run forever. I'm giving up me to become that love a little more every day. Quoting a lyric from one of Manson's songs, Susan ended the letter. Cease to exist, just come and say you love me, as I say I love you, or I should say love me, my love in you. I hope now you understand a little more. If not, ask. Ronnie, who was now living in deathly fear of Susan, turned the letter over to her attorney, Wesley Russell, who passed it on to her office. It would prove far more damaging to Susan Atkins than the confession which appeared in the Los Angeles Times. Hey, Teresa. December 15th to the 25th, 1969. When on a case, I made it a habit periodically to scour LAPD's tubs or files, often finding something useful to my case whose evidentiary value wasn't apparent to the police. In going through the LaBianca's tubs, I made two discoveries. The first was the Al Springer interview. Only one page had been transcribed, the one in which Springer related how Manson told him. We knocked off 5 of them just the other night. As desperate as we were for the evidence, none of the detectives have mentioned the Springer statement to me, nor when I questioned Lieutenants Helder and LePage, were they aware they had a confession by Manson in their files. Wow. I took the tape and had it transcribed, adding interview Al Springer to my own already lengthy list of things to do. Though because of Aranda, Manson's confession could be used against him at the trial, it was quite possible he had made other admissions that could. The second find was a photocopy of a letter mailed to Manson while he was in jail in Independence. The content was innocuous, however. It was signed Harold. Susan Atkins had told the grand jury that a guy named Harold had been living at the house next door to LaBianca residence when she, Charlie, and a number of others had gone there for an LSD party a year or so earlier. I had a feeling this might be the same person and made another note for the LaBianca detectives. Find Harold. This shouldn't be too difficult, as he had given an address in Sherman Oaks and 2 telephone numbers. Why? The biggest and most puzzling question of all remained. What was Manson's motive? On learning that Manson often told his followers that he was a Scorpio, and thinking that possibly his belief in astrology might be a factor, I obtained back copies of the Los Angeles Times and checked Carol Reiter's astrological forecast for his sign. August 8th. Do whatever you think will help you to extend your sphere of influence. Take care of that private task wisely and well. Get the information at the right source, then use it cleverly. August 9th. If you go about it tactfully, you can get a reluctant associate to understand what you have in mind. Cooperate with this individual when some problems arise. August 10th. There are fine opportunities all around you. Don't hesitate to seize the best one. Extend your sphere of influence. You could, I realized, read just about any meaning you wanted into such forecasts, including plans for murder. It was indicative of our desperation that I went to such unlikely lengths in trying to ascertain why Manson had ordered these murders. I didn't even know whether Manson read the newspapers. Since the story first broke, LAPD had been receiving inquiries from various police departments regarding unsolved murders in their jurisdictions, which they believed could have been committed by one or more members of the Manson family. I went through these reports, eliminating a great many, setting others aside as possibles. Though my principal concern was the Tate LaBianca homicides, I wanted to see if there was a discernible pattern which might help explain the killings at Cielo and Waverly Drives. Thus far, if there was one, I couldn't find it. In her printed confession, Susan Atkins had described how, after changing clothes in the car, the Tate killers drove along a steep embankment, with a mountain on one side, a ravine on the other. We stopped and Linda got out of the car and threw all the clothes, all drippy with blood, over the side. With the Time story on the seat beside them, a TV camera crew from Channel 7 KABC TV attempted to recreate the scene. Driving from the gate at 10050 Cielo Drive, they proceeded down Benedict Canyon, all with the driver changing clothes on the way. It took them 6 minutes and 20 seconds, during which they later admitted that felt more than a little foolish to complete their change of apparel. At the first spot where they could pull off the road, a wide shoulder opposite 2901 Benedict Canyon Road, they stopped and got out. Mountain on one side, ravine on the other. Newscaster Al Winman looked down the steep embankment and, pointing to some dark objects about 50 feet down, said, laughing, looks like there's clothing down there. King Baggett, the cameraman, and Eddie Baker, the soundman, looked too and had to agree. It was just too easy. If the clothing was in plain view from the road, surely LAPD would have found it by now. Still, they decided to check it out. They were about to descend the slope when the car radio buzzed. They were needed on another story. While on another assignment, they couldn't get those dark objects out of mind. About 3 p.m., they returned to the spot. Baker went down first, followed by Baggett. They found 3 sets of clothing, 1 pair of black trousers, 2 pairs of blue denim pants, 2 black t-shirts, 1 dark blue turtleneck, and 1 white t-shirt, which was spotted with some substance that looked like dried blood. Some of the clothing was partly covered by dirt slides. All of it, however, was in the area about 12 feet square, as if thrown there in one bundle. They yelled the news up to Wingman, who called LAPD. By the time McGann and 3 other detectives arrived, shortly before 5, it was beginning to get dark, so the TV crew set up artificial lighting. While the detectives placed the clothing in plastic bags, Baggett filmed the incident. On learning of the find, I asked the Tate detectives to conduct a thorough search of the area to see if they could locate any of the weapons. I had to make the request not once, but many, many times. In the interim, a week after initial discovery, Baggett and Baker returned to the scene and conducted their own search, finding a knife. It was an old, badly rusted kitchen knife, which, because of its dimension and dull edge, was eliminated as one of the murder weapons, but it was in plain view less than 100 feet from where the clothing had been found. That a TV crew had found the clothing was an embarrassment to LAPD. Bases at Parker Center, however, would be far redder before the end of the day following. On Tuesday, December 16th, Susan Atkins appeared before Judge Keene and pleaded not guilty to all 8 counts of the indictment. Keene set a trial date of February 9th, 1970. Since this was the same date set for the retrial of Bobby Bussolilli, I was taken off the Bussolilli-Hinman case, and it was assigned to Deputy DA Burton Katz. I wasn't unhappy about this. I had more than enough to do on the Tate LaBianca. That Tuesday was, for Bernard Weiss, a most trying day. Weiss hadn't read Susan Atkins' story when it appeared in the Los Angeles Times, but a colleague at work had, and he mentioned to Weiss that a .22 caliber revolver had definitely been used in the Tate murders. Odd coincidence, wasn't it? His boy finding a similar type gun? Weiss thought it might be something more than that. After all, his son had found the revolver on September 1st, a little over 2 weeks after the Tate murders. They lived not far from the Tate residence, and the road right above the hill where Stephen had found the gun was Beverly Glen. That morning, Weiss called the Valley Services Division of LAPD in Van Nuys and told them he thought they might have the missing Tate gun. Van referred to the LAPD homicide at Parker Center. Weiss called there about noon and repeated the story. He observed that the gun his son had found had a broken trigger guard, and part of the wooden grip was missing. Well, it sounds enough like the gun, the detective told him. We'll check it out. Weiss anticipated that the detective would call him back. He didn't. That evening, on arriving home, Weiss read the Atkins story. It convinced him. About 6 p.m., he again called LAPD homicide. The officer he talked to at noon was out, so he had to repeat the story a 3rd time. This officer told him, "We don't keep guns that long. We throw them in the ocean after a while," Weiss said. "I can't believe you'd throw away what could be the single most important piece of evidence in the Tate case." "Listen, mister," the officer replied, "we can't check out every citizen report on every gun we find. Thousands of guns are found every year." The discussion became an argument, and they hung up on each other. Weiss then called one of the neighbors, Cleet Roberts, a newscaster for Channel 2, and told Roberts the story. Roberts in turn called someone at LAPD. "They threw the gun in the ocean? What the hell?" Although it remains unclear which of the 5 calls triggered a response, at least one did. At 10 p.m., 3.5 months after Weiss gave the gun to Officer Watson, Sergeant Calkins and McGann drove over to Van Nuys and picked up the .22 caliber high-standard Longhorn revolver. Police find gun believed used in slaying of 3 Tate victims. News of find leaked to the Los Angeles Times 4 days later. It was a somewhat selective leak. There were no details as to when or where the gun was found, or by whom, the implication being that it had been discovered by LAPD sometime after the clothing and in the same general area. The cylinder contained 2 live rounds and 7 empty shell casings. This tailed perfectly with the original autopsy reports, which stated that Sebring and Frykowski had been shot once and Parent 5 times. There was only one problem. I'd already discovered the autopsy reports were in error. After Susan Atkins testified that Tex Watson shot Parent 4, not 5 times, I'd asked Coroner Noguchi to re-examine the Parent autopsy photos. When he did, he found that 2 of the wounds had been made by the same bullet. This reduced the number of times Parent was shot to 4. It also left 1 bullet unaccounted for. This time, I had Noguchi re-examine all the autopsy photos. In doing so, he found that Frykowski had been shot not once but twice. The coroners performing the autopsy have overlooked a gunshot wound in the left leg. So the count was again consistent, even if the reports were not. This whole case is botched, like bad. Jeez. Bill Lee of SID compared the 3 pieces of gun grip with the butt of the revolver, a perfect fit. Joe Granado tested some brown spots on the barrel, blood, human, same type and subtype as J.C. Brings. After test firing the gun, Lee placed the test bullets and the tape bullets under a comparison microscope. 3 of the 4 bullets recovered after the tape mirrors were either too fragmented or too battered for the stria to match up. With the 4th, the Sebring bullet, he made a positive ID. There was no doubt whatsoever, he told me, that it had been fired from the .22 Longhorn. One very important step remained, linking the gun to Charles Manson. I asked the tape detectives to show it to DiCarlo to determine if it was the same gun in which Manson and other men used to target practice at Spawn. I also requested as complete a history of the gun as they could manage, from the day it was manufactured by high standard to the day it was found by Steve Weiss. I'm just going to read you. Ooh, there's a new case. Oh, God. Oh, wow. It was decided there was insufficient evidence to convict either Gypsy or Brenda, and the 2 hardcore Manson family members were released from custody. Although Brenda returned to her parents for a short time, both soon rejoined Squeaky, Sandy, and the other family members at Spawn, Lonely George having weakened and let them move back to the ranch. Manson's frequent court appearances gave me opportunities to study him. Though he had had little formal schooling, he was fairly articulate and definitely bright. He picked up little nuances, seemed to consider all the hidden sides of a question before answering. His moods were a miracle, his facial expressions chameleon-like. Underneath, however, there was a strange intensity. You felt it even when he was joking, which, despite the seriousness of the charges, was often. He frequently played to the always packed courtroom, not only to the family faithful, but to the press and spectators as well. Spotting a pretty girl, he'd often smile or wink. Usually they appeared more flattered than offended. Though their responses surprised me, they shouldn't have. I'd already heard that Manson was receiving a large volume of mail, including many love letters, the majority of which were from young girls who wanted to join the family. On December 17th, Manson appeared before Judge Keene and asked to have the public defender dismissed. He wanted to represent himself, he said. Judge Keene told Manson that he was not convinced that he was competent to represent himself, or, in legal jargon, to proceed in pro per and propria persona. Manson, Your Honor, there is no way I can give up my voice in this matter. If I can't speak, then our whole thing is done. If I can't speak in my own defense and converse freely in this courtroom, then it ties my hands behind my back, and if I have no choice, then there is no sense in having a defense. Keene agreed to reconsider Manson's motion on the 22nd. Manson's insistence that only he could speak for himself, as well as his obvious enjoyment at being in the spotlight, led me to a conclusion. When the time came, he probably wouldn't be able to resist taking the stand. I began keeping a notebook of questions I intend to ask him on the cross-examination. Before long, there was a second notebook, and a third. The story... Oh, no. Okay. On the 19th, Leslie Van Houten also asked to have her present attorney, Donald Barnett, dismissed. Keene granted the motion and appointed Marvin Hart to be Miss Van Houten's attorney of record. Only later would we learn what was happening behind the scenes. Manson set up his own communications network. Wherever he heard that an attorney for one of the girls had initiated a move on behalf of his client, which could conceivably run counter to Manson's own defense, within days that attorney would be removed from the case. Barnett had wanted a psychiatrist to examine Leslie. Learning of this, Manson vetoed the idea, and when the psychiatrist appeared at Sybil Brand, Leslie refused to see him. Her request for Barnett's dismissal came immediately after. Manson's goal to run the entire defense himself, in court as well as out. Charlie intended to retain complete control of the family. Manson wanted to represent himself, he told the court, because lawyers play with people, and I am a person, and I don't want to be played with in this matter. What? Most lawyers are only interested in one thing, publicity, Manson said. He'd seen quite a few of them lately and felt he knew what he was talking about. An attorney previously associated with the DA's office was not acceptable to him, he added. He had learned that 2 other defendants had court-appointed attorneys who were once a deputy DAs, Calvarello and Hart. Judge Keene explained that many lawyers engaged in the practice of criminal law first gain experience in the office of the district attorney, the city attorney, or the U.S. attorney. Knowing how the prosecution worked was often a benefit to their clients. Manson. It sounds good from here, but not from here. Your Honor, Manson continued, I am in a difficult position. The news media has already executed and buried me. If anyone is hypnotized, the people are hypnotized by the lies being told to them. There is no attorney in the world who can represent me as a person. I have to do it myself. Judge Keene had a suggestion. He would arrange for an experienced attorney to confer with him. Unlike other attorneys to whom Manson had talked, this attorney would have no interest in representing him. His function would be solely to discuss with him the legal issues and the possible dangers of defending himself. Manson accepted the offer, and after court, Keene arranged for Joseph Ball, a former president of the State Bar Association and former senior counsel to the Warner Commission, to meet with Manson. Manson talked to Ball and found him a very nice gentleman. He told Judge Keene on the 24th, Mr. Ball probably understands maybe everything there is to know about law, but he doesn't understand the generation gap. He doesn't understand free love society. He doesn't understand people who are trying to get out from underneath all of this. Ball, in turn, found Manson an able, intelligent young man, quiet-spoken and mild-mannered. Although he had attempted to persuade him, without success, that he could benefit from the services of a skilled lawyer, Ball was obviously impressed with Manson. We went over different problems of law, and I found he had already understanding. Remarkable understanding. As a matter of fact, he has a very fine brain. I complimented him on the fact. I think I told you that he had a high IQ. Must have to be able to converse as he did. Manson is not resentful against society, Ball said, and he feels that if he goes to trial and he is able to permit jurors and the court to hear him and see him, they will realize he is not the kind of man who would perpetrate horrible crimes. After Ball had finished, Judge Keene questioned Manson for more than an hour about his knowledge of the courtroom procedure and the possible penalties for the crimes with which he was charged, throughout almost begging him to reconsider his decision to defend himself. Manson says, for all my life, as long as I can remember, I've taken your advice. Your faces have changed, but it's the same court, the same structure. All of my life, I've been put in little slots, Your Honor. And I went along with it. I have no alternative but to fight you back anyway I know, because you and the district attorney and all the attorneys I've ever met are all on the same side. The police are on the same side, and the newspapers are on the same side, and it's all pointed against me. Personally, no, I haven't changed my mind. The court said, Mr. Manson, I am imploring you not to take this step. I am imploring you to either name your own attorney or, if you are unable to do so, to permit the court to name one for you. Manson's mind was made up, however, and Judge Keene finally concluded, it is, in this court's opinion, a sad and tragic mistake that you are making by taking this course of action, but I can't talk you out of it. Mr. Manson, you are your own lawyer. It was Christmas Eve. I worked until 2 a.m., then took the next day off. Oh, I love Kendra Ray. She does really, really good. December 26th to the 31st, 1969. A call from LAPD. A cook at the Brentwood County Club says that the chief steward there, Rudolph Weber, was the man in front of whose house the Tate killer stopped to hose off about 1 a.m. on August 9th. Bringing along a police photographer to take photos of the area, Culkins and I went to see Weber at his home at 9870 Portola Drive, a side street just off Benedict Canyon Drive, less than 2 miles from the Tate residence. As I listened to Weber's story, I knew he was going to be a good witness. He had an excellent memory, told exactly what he remembered, didn't try to fill in what he did not. He was unable to make a positive identification from the large batch of photos I showed him, but his general description fitted. All 4 were young. Watson, Atkins, Carmichael, and Kasabian were all in the early 20s. The man was tall. Watson was 6'1", and one of the girls was short. Kasabian was 5'1". His description of the car, which had never appeared in the press, was accurate down to the faded paint around the license plates. How was it he could recall such a detail of a car but not their faces? Very simple. When he followed the 4 down to the car, he turned the flashlight on the license plate. When he saw them on the street near the hose, they were in the dark. Weber had a surprise, a big one. Following the incident, thinking perhaps the 4 people had committed a burglary in the area, he had written down the license number of the vehicle. He had since thrown the piece of paper away. My heart sank, but he still remembered the number. It was GYY 435. How in the world could he remember that? I asked him. In his job as steward, he had to remember numbers, he replied. Anticipating that this point might be brought up by the defense, I asked Weber if he had read the Atkins story. He said he hadn't. On returning to my office, I checked the impound report on John Schwartz's car. 1959 Ford 4, Dr. License GYY 435. When I interviewed Swartz, the former Spawn Ranch hand told me that Manson and his girl often borrowed the car. In fact, he had taken the back seat out so they could fit the big boxes in when they went on their garbage runs. With the exception of one particular night, they always asked his permission before taking the car. What night was that? Well, he wasn't exactly sure of the date, but it was a week or 2 weeks before the raid. What happened that particular night? Well, he'd already gone to bed in his trailer, and when he heard his car start up, he got up and looked out the window just in time to see the taillights pulling away. Any idea what time it was? Well, he usually went to bed around 10 or thereabouts, so it was after that. When he woke up the next morning, Swartz said, the car was back. He'd asked Charlie why they'd taken the car without asking, and Charlie had told him that he hadn't wanted to wake him up. Any other nights during the same period when Manson borrowed the car? I inquired. Yeah, one other night, Charlie, the girls, and some other guys, he was unable to remember which girls and guys, said they were going downtown to play some music. Swartz wasn't able to date this particular night, except that it was around the same time they took the car without permission. Before or after, he couldn't remember. Consecutive nights? Couldn't remember that either. I asked Swartz if he had ever belonged to the family. Never, he very emphatically replied. One time after the raid, after Shorty had dropped from sight, he and Manson had an argument, Swartz said. Charlie had told him, I could kill you any time. I could come into your sleeping quarters any time. After that, Swartz quit his job at Spawn, where he had been working off and on since 1963, and got a job at another ranch. What did he know about Shorty's disappearance? Well, a week or two after the raid, Shorty just wasn't around anymore. He'd asked Charlie if he knew where he was, and Charlie had told him, he's gone to San Francisco about a job. I told him about a job there. He didn't exactly feel confident with that explanation, he said, not after having noticed that Bill Vance and Danny DiCarlo each had one of Shorty's .45 caliber pistols. Shorty would never willingly part with those matched pistols, Swartz said, no matter how hard up he was. Under the Constitution of the United States, extradition is mandatory, not discretionary. Subdivision 2 of article says, a person charged in any state with treason, felony, or any other crime who shall flee from justice and be found in another state shall, on demand of the executive authority of the state from which he fled, be delivered up to be removed by the state having jurisdiction of the crime. When a state has a valid and duly executed indictment, as we did in the case of Charles Tex Watson, there was no legitimate reason why the accused shouldn't be extradited forthwith. Hey, Jan. Certain powers in Collin County, Texas felt otherwise. Bill Boyd, Watson's attorney, told the press he'd fight to keep his client in Texas if it meant going all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Hey, Lisa. Bill Boyd's father, Roland Boyd, was a powerful Southern politician of the Sam Rayburn School. He was also the campaign manager of a candidate who was running for Attorney General of Texas. It was his candidate, Judge David Brown, who heard the Watson extradition request and granted delay after delay after delay to young Boyd's client. Bill Boyd was himself an aspiring politician. Tom Ryan, the local DA, told Los Angeles Times reporter, I've heard it said that Bill wants to be president of the United States, and after that, he wants to be God. Times Magazine reported, as swarms of reporters begged for jailhouse interviews with his client, Boyd began dropping 10-gallon hints that Watson's family might go along if the offer is substantial. One photographer offered $1,800. We need lots and lots of money, reported Boyd. How much? About $50,000, said the lawyer. Though the press balked, Boyd still had not lowered his client's price, and he is quite sure that eventually he will get it. Meanwhile, Tex apparently wasn't suffering unduly. We heard from various sources that his one-man cell was comfortably furnished, that he had his own record player and records. His vegetarian meals were cooked by his mother. He also wore his own clothing, which she laundered. And he was not completely lacking company. His cell adjoined that occupied by the female prisoners. Though the extradition of Watson was proving difficult, there were indications that Katie Kremwinkle might decide to return voluntarily on Manson's orders. Squeaky, acting as Charles' liaison, had sent Kremwinkle a barrage of letters and telegrams, photocopies of which we received from the Mobile, Alabama authorities. Together we stand. If you go, extra is good. I also presume that the togetherness referred to in each of the messages meant that Manson intended to conduct a joint or umbrella defense. Since the family had contacted Kremwinkle, but as far we could determine not Watson, I carried my conjecture a step further, guessing that when the case went to trial, Manson and the girls would try to put the hat on Watson. Presuming they would try to prove that Tex, not Charlie, was the mastermind behind the Tate LaBianca murders, I began collecting every bit of evidence I could find on the Manson-Watson relationship and the role each played in the family. When interrogated Los Angeles, 16-year-old Diane Lake had been threatened with a gas chamber and had said nothing. In Yale County, Deputy DA Buck Gibbons and investigator Jack Gardner tried kindness, something Diane had known little of during her life. Diane's parents had turned hippie while she was still a child. By age 13, she was a member of the Hog Farm commune and had been introduced to group sex and LSD. When she joined Manson just before her 14th birthday, it was with her parents' approval. Apparently not finding Diane submissive enough, Manson had, on various occasions, punched her in the mouth, kicked her across the room, hit her over the head with a chair leg, and whipped her with an electrical cord. Despite such treatment, she stayed, which implies something tragic about the alternatives available to her. That's sad. After her return to independence, Gibbons and Gardner had a number of lengthy conversations with Diane. They convinced her that other people did care about her. Gardner's wife and children visited her regularly. Hesitantly at first, Diane began telling the officers what she knew, and contrary to what she had told the grand jury, she knew a great deal. Tex, for example, had admitted to her that he stabbed Sharon Tate. He did it, he told her, because Charlie had ordered the killings. On December 30th, Sartucci and Nelson interviewed Diane in Independence. She told them that one morning, maybe a week or 2 weeks before the August 16th raid, Leslie had come into the back house at Spawn with a purse, a rope, and a bag of coins. She hid them under a blanket. When a short time later, a man arrived and knocked on the door, Leslie hid herself. She told Diane the man had given her a ride from Griffith Park and she didn't want him to see her. The two LaBianca detectives exchanged looks. Griffith Park was not far from Waverly Drive. Because of Leno LaBianca's coin collection, the detectives were very interested in that bag of change. Okay, you say you helped Leslie count the money or coins. Did you see any coins in there from another country? Canada. Leslie then built a fire and burned the purse. Diane recalled it as being brown leather. Some credit cards, one was an oil company card, and the rope, it was about 4 feet long and 1 to 1.5 inches in diameter. Then she took off her own clothing and burned it too. Had Diane noticed any blood spots on the clothing? No. Later in late August or early September, while they were at Willow Springs, about 10 miles from Barker Ranch, Leslie told Diane that she had stabbed someone who was already dead. Was it a woman or a man? Leslie hadn't said. Leslie also told Diane that the murder had occurred someplace near Griffith Park, near Las Feliz, that someone had written something in blood on the refrigerator door, and that she, Leslie, then wiped everything so there would be no prints, even wiping things they hadn't touched. When they left, they took some food with them. What kind of food? A carton of chocolate milk. Had Leslie said anything about the Tate murders? Leslie had told her she wasn't in on that. Sartucci attempted to get more details. The only other thing Diane could recall was that there had been a big boat outside the house, but she couldn't remember whether Leslie had told her about the boat or whether she had read it in the paper. She did, however, remember Leslie's describing it. Prior to this, the only evidence we had linking Leslie Van Houten with the LaBianca murders was the testimony of Susan Atkins. Since Susan was an accomplice, this would not stand up in court without independent cooperation. Diane Lake supplied that. There was a question, however, as to whether Diane would be able to testify at the trial. She was obviously emotionally disturbed. She had occasional LSD flashbacks. She feared Manson, and she loved him. At times, she thought he was inside her head. Shortly after the first of the year, the Inyo County Court arranged for her to be sent to Patton State Hospital, in part for her treatment for her emotional problems, in part because the court didn't know what else to do with her. Additions to my list of things to do. Check to see if any LaBianca credit cards are still missing. When Doctors Permit interviewed Diane, found out if anyone else present during the back house incident or Willow Springs conversation. Check with Katasuma to see if any of the LaBianca stab wounds were post-mortem, i.e. inflicted after death. Ask Suzanne Struthers if her mother had brown leather purse and if it was missing. Ask Suzanne and or Frank Struthers if either Rosemary or Leno liked chocolate milk. Tiny details, but they could be important. The Herald, whose letter I'd found in the Tate tubs, was the same Herald Susan Atkins had mentioned in a grand jury testimony. His full name was Harold True, and he was a student. When LAPD found him, I was busy with another interview, so Aaron volunteered to talk to him. From True, who remained friendly to Manson, visiting him several times at the county jail, Aaron learned that he had met Charlie in March of 1968, while the family was living in Topanga Canyon. The next day, Charlie had about 10 others, including Sadie, Katie, Squeaky, and Brenda, but not Tex or Leslie, had shown up at 3267 Waverly Drive, the house True shared with 3 other youths, and stayed overnight. Manson had visited him maybe 4 or 5 times there before True and the others moved out on September 1968. While they were still living at Waverly, True said neighbors had frequently complained about their nosy parties. Aaron hadn't asked True if LaBiancas had been among the neighborhoods who complained, and I made a note to check this. When I did, I learned that True couldn't recall having ever seen the LaBiancas, as best he could remember. 3301 Waverly Drive was vacant all the time they were living there. Hey, Nancy. Going back to the LaBianca investigation reports, I saw that Leno and Rosemary hadn't moved to 3301 Waverly Drive until November 1968, which was after True and the others moved out. I'd been looking for a possible incident involving the LaBiancas and the family. I didn't find it. We were left with two facts, however. Manson had been to the house next door to the LaBianca residence on 5 or 6 occasions, and he had been as far as the gate to the Tate residence at least once. Coincidence? Anticipating that this was probably what the Manson defense would argue, I jotted down some ideas for my rebuttal. Charles Manson was not without his sense of humor. While in the county jail, he had somehow managed to obtain an application for a Union Oil Company credit card. He filled it in, giving his correct name and the jail address. He listed Spawn Movies Ranch as his previous residence and gave George Spawn a reference. As for his occupation, he put evangelist, type of business, religious, length of employment, 20 years. He also wrote in the blank for his wife's first name, none, and gave his number of dependents, 16. The card was smuggled out of jail and mailed from Pasadena. Someone at Union Oil, obviously not a computer, recognized the name, and Charles Manson didn't get the 2 credit cards he'd requested. Another characteristic I noticed while observing Manson in court was his cockiness. One possible reason for this was notoriety. At the beginning of December 1969, few had ever heard of Charles Manson. By the end of that month, the girl had already upstaged his famous victims. An enthusiastic family member was heard to brag Charlie made the cover of Life. But it was something more. You got that feeling that, despite his verbal utterances, Manson was convinced he was going to beat the rap. He wasn't the only one to feel this. Leslie Van Houten wrote her parents, and even if convicted, she'd be out in 7 years. In California, a person given life imprisonment is eligible for parole in 7 years. Well, Bobby Buscelli wrote several of his girlfriends that he expected to be acquitted in his new trial, after which he was going to start his own family. The problem at year's end was that there was a very good chance that at least Manson would be right. What if Manson demands an immediate trial? Aaron and I discussed this at length. A defendant was constitutional right to a speedy trial and a statutory right to go to viral within 60 days after the return of the indictment. If Manson insisted on this, we were in deep trouble. We needed more time for 2 reasons. We still desperately lacked evidence to corroborate the testimony of Susan Atkins, presuming, and it was a big presumption, that she agreed to testify. And 2 of the defendants, Watson and Krenwinkel, were still out of state. They just happened to be the only 2 defendants against whom there were scientific evidence of guilt, i.e. the fingerprints at the Tate residence. If there was to be a joint trial, which we wanted, we needed at least one of the 2 sitting behind the defense table. I suggested we bluff. Every time we were in court, we should indicate that we wanted to go to trial as quickly as possible. Our hope was that Manson would think that this was bad and start stalling himself. It was a gamble. There was a very real possibility that Manson might call our bluff, saying, with his strange little grin, "Okay, let's go to trial right now." Now we're on Port 4. The search for the motive. The Bible, the Beatles, and Helter Skelter. Then there's a little quote here from Roman Polanski. It says, "If I'm looking for a motive, I'd look for something which doesn't fit your habitual standard, with which you used to work as police. Something much more far out." Confidential memo from Deputy DA Vincent Bugliosi to District Attorney Eval Younger, subject status of Tate and LaBianca cases. The memo ran to 13 pages, but the heart of it consisted of a single paragraph. Without Susan Atkins' testimony on the Tate case, the evidence against 2 out of the 5 defendants, Manson and Kasabian, is rather anemic. Without her testimony on the LaBianca case, evidence against 5 out of the 6 defendants, everyone except Van Houten, is now non-existent. That was it. Without Sadie, we still didn't have a case. On January 2nd, I called a meeting of the Tate and LaBianca detectives, giving them a list of 42 things that had to be done. Many were repeat requests. Go to the areas where the clothing and the gun were found and search for knives. Has Granada been able to make the boots we picked up in November with the bloody boot heel print on the Tate walkway? SID must have something by now on their wire cutters. Also, the clothing the TV crew found. Where is the tape in Inyo County Deputy Sheriff Ward made with the 2 miners, Crockett and Paulston? Where are the reports on the Tate, LaBianca, and Spawn Ranch toll calls? Telephone company destroys its records after 6 months. Hurry on this. Many of the requests were elementary follow-up steps that I felt the detectives should have already done on their own. Without our prompting, get Atkins' printing exemplar and compare it with pig on the front door at Tate. Get same on defendants Van Houten, Carmichael, and Watson, and compare with printing in the La Bianca residence. Submit a complete report on the stolen credit cards involved in this case. We were hoping to find a sales slip on the rope or the buck knives. DiCarlo said he was along when Manson purchased the 3-strand nylon rope at the Jack Frost store in Santa Monica in June 1969. Ask Frost employees if they sold such a rope. Also show them the family album to see if they can recall Manson and or DiCarlo. Also show photos of Manson, Atkins, Kasabian, and the others to employees of the Standard Station and similar where Rosemary LaBianca's wallet was found. After giving the detectives a list, I asked, I presume that, above and beyond what I've given you, you guys are also conducting your own independent investigations? The long silence that followed was in itself the answer. Then Calkins complained, how are we supposed to know to do these things? We're policemen, not lawyers. Wait a minute, I said. These 42 things have nothing to do with the law. Each and every one pertains to securing evidence and strengthening our case against these people. But that isn't our job, Calkins continued to protest. His remark was so astonishing, I came close to losing my temper. Investigating a case, gathering evidence, connecting defendants with the corpus delicti of the crime, and isn't a police job? Come on, Bob. You're the detectives. Aaron and I are the lawyers. Each of us has our own job to do, and if either of us falls down on the job, Manson's going to walk. Think about that. I could understand if the detectives had other duties, but they were assigned full-time to the case. Unlike Calkins, Mike McGann rarely complained, but he rarely came through either. To a man, the La Bianca detectives were far more conscientious. Conscientious. Come on, mouth work. In the weeks ahead, I began giving them assignments and related specifically to the Tate as well as La Bianca murders, knowing they'd do their best. I did this only after checking with Lieutenant Helder, who candidly agreed that Calkins and McGann simply weren't getting the job done. If it was any consolation to the police, I'm sure it wasn't. My own list was much larger than theirs. It ranged from such simple items as a reminder to get the Beatles album that contained the song Helter Skelter to more than 50 names of potential witnesses I needed to interview. It also included such detailed specifics as obtain extract measurements of all La Bianca wounds. Original officers failed to ask Deputy Medical Examiner Kasuma for this in order to determine dimensions of knives used. The measurements of the La Bianca wounds were extremely important. If the wound patterns were consistent with those made by the La Bianca kitchen knives, then the logical inference was that defendants had entered the residence unarmed and killed the La Biancas with their own knives. If Manson had intended to kill these people, the defense would surely ask, would he have set in unarmed people to do the job? Or even greater importance was another item which appeared on all the assignment lists. Get indictments and witnesses who can testify to same where Manson ordered and instructed anyone to do anything. Put yourself in the jury box. Would you believe the prosecutor if he told you that a little runt out at Spawn Ranch sent some half a dozen people, the majority of them young girls, out to murder for him, their victims not persons they knew and had a grudge against but complete strangers, including a pregnant woman, and that without argument they did it? To convince a jury of this, I would have to first convince them of Manson's domination over the family, and particularly over his co-defendants. A domination so total, so complete, that they would do anything he told them to do, including murder. Each time I interviewed anyone connected with the family, I would ask for an example of Manson's control. Often the witness would be unable to recall specific examples, and I'd have to dig to bring them out. Why did Manson beat Diane Lake? Was it because she failed to do something he told her to do? Who assigned the chores at the ranch? Who put out the guards and lookouts? Can you recall a single instance where Tex ever talked back to Charlie? Getting this evidence was especially difficult because Manson rarely gave direct orders. Usually he'd suggest rather than command, though his suggestions had the force of commands. Domination. Unless we could prove this beyond all reasonable doubt, we'd never obtain a conviction against Manson. As the defense attorneys requested discovery, I'd take them to my office and let them go through our files on the case. Since Manson was now acting as his own attorney, the files were also made available to him, the only difference being that they were carted over to the county jail, and he examined them there. Eventually, by a court order, secretaries in our office photostated everything in our files with a copy for each defense counsel. Only 2 things were held back. I argued to the court. We would vehemently resist furnishing Mr. Manson with addresses and particularly phone numbers of prospective witnesses. Your Honor, I also strongly oppose providing the defense with copies of the death photos. We had heard that a German magazine had a standing offer of $100,000 for them. I did not want the families of the victims to open a magazine and see their terrible butchery inflicted on their loved ones. With only these 2 exceptions, the court ruling in our favor on both, the prosecution by law gave the defense anything they wanted, and discovering being a one-way street, They in turn gave us nothing. We couldn't even get a list of the witnesses they intended to call. I was still reading newspaper and magazine articles to pick up leads. Even this wasn't as simple as it sounds. Many former associates of the family were in fear of their lives. Several, including Dennis Wilson of Beach Boys, had received death threats. Since few sources wished to be quoted by name, pseudonyms were often used in articles. In several instances, I tracked down someone only to find a person that I'd already interviewed. And, in more than a few cases, I found fiction posing as fact. One article claimed that Manson and various other family members had been present at a party Roman and Sharon gave at 10050 Cielo in early 1969. Once located, the writer told me his source was Alan Warnock, a close friend of Terry Melcher. When I talked to Warnock, he denied saying any such thing. Eventually, I assembled a list of persons who had attended the party, and as many as could be located were interviewed. None had seen Manson or the others at 10050 Cielo Drive, either on the night in question or any other time. Peter Mass, author of the Valachi Papers, wrote an article entitled The Sharon Tate Murders, which appeared in the Ladies' Home Journal. In it was the following paragraph. How are you going to get establishment? You can't sing to them. I tried that. I tried to save them, but they wouldn't listen. Now we got to destroy them. Charlie Manson to a friend in summer of 1969. This was powerful evidence, if true, and I was anxious to learn the source of Maz's quotation. After easily a dozen calls, I located Maz in New York City, asked the source from several other statements. He quickly supplied them, but when it came to the key quote mentioned above, which the journal had seen fit to highlight with italics on the first page of the article, Maz said he couldn't remember who had told him that. Cross off another seemingly promising lead. No, me neither, Brittany. Can you imagine? Oh my God. On August 9th, 1968, exactly a year before the Tate murders, Greg Jacobson had arranged a recording session for Manson at a studio in Van Nuys. I went there to listen to the tapes, which were now in the possession of Herb Weiser, a Hollywood attorney representing the audio. My own admittedly unprofessional appraisal was that Manson was no worse than many performers in current vogue. A folk song expert later listened to the tapes and found the songs extremely derivative. From his notes, somewhere along the line, Manson had picked up a pretty good guitar beat. Nothing original about the music, but the lyrics are something else. They contain an amazing amount of hostility. You'll get yours, etc. This is rare in folk songs, except the old murder ballads. But even there it is, always past tense. In Manson's lyrics, there are things that are going to happen. Very spooky. Overall judgment, a moderately talented amateur. However, Charlie's musical ability was not my major concern. Both Atkins and DiCarlo had said that the words Helter Skelter appeared in at least one of Manson's own songs. I'd asked both, are you sure it wasn't just playing the Beatles song Helter Skelter? No, each had replied. This was Charlie's own composition. If anywhere in his lyrics I could find Helter Skelter, Pig, Death to Pigs, or Rise, it would be strong circumstantial evidence. No luck. It looked for a time as if we'd have better luck with the Watson extradition. On January 5th, following the hearing in Austin, Texas, Secretary of State Martin Dies Jr. Ordered Watson returned to California. Boyd returned to McKinney and filed a writ of habeas corpus asking that Dye's order be vacated. The writ was filed with Judge Brown. On January 16th, Brown granted a 30-day continuance on Boyd's request. Tex remained in Texas. In Los Angeles, the Nick Kasabian was arraigned on the 6th and pleaded not guilty. That same day, attorney Marvin Parr requested that a court-appointed psychiatrist examine his client Leslie. Judge Keene appointed Dr. Blake Skardla, who was to make a confidential report to Part. Earlier, Part had requested and received permission to interview Leslie on tape. Though the prosecution would neither hear the tape nor see the report, it was a fairly safe assumption that Part, like his predecessor Barnett, was considering an insanity plea. We didn't have to wait very long for Manson's reaction. On the 19th, Leslie requested that Part be relieved as his attorney and Ira Rayner appointed instead. Owing to the possibility-sensitive nature of the testimony, Judge George M. Dow decided to hear the matter in chambers, outside the presence of the public and the press. The transcripts of in-chambers proceedings were sealed until after the conclusion of the trial. Though there were occasional leaks, in most instances, those proceedings are recorded here for the first time. Part opposed the substitution, arguing that Leslie was mentally incapable of making a rational decision. This girl will do anything that Charles Manson or any other member of the so-called Manson family says. This girl has no will of her own. Because of this hold that Charles Manson and the family has over her, she doesn't care whether she is tried together and gets the gas chamber. She just wants to be with the family. The appointment of Reiner, Part claimed, would constitute a conflict of interest, one that would definitely hurt Miss Van Houten. Part told the court how the switch had come about. A week or so ago, Squeaky had visited Leslie. Although Part was also present, Squeaky had told her, "We think you ought to have another lawyer," and had shown her Rayner's card. Leslie had replied, "I'll do anything that Charlie wants me to do." A few days later, Leslie refused to be examined by the psychiatrist and informed Part that he was no longer her attorney and that Reiner was. Part wanted Judge Dell to listen to the tape he had made with Leslie. He was sure that, having heard it, the court would realize that Leslie Van Houten was incapable of acting in her own best interests. It was now obvious that Part felt a joint trial and an umbrella defense would hurt his client. The other defendants were charged with 7 murders, Leslie with only 2, and the evidence against her was slight. To the best of my knowledge, Part said, referring to Diane Lake's statement, which he had received through discovery, all she did was perhaps stab somebody who was already dead. Judge Dell then questioned Ira Reiner, who admitted that he had talked to Manson roughly a dozen times. He also admitted that Manson was one of several people who had suggested he represent Leslie. He had never actually represented Manson. However, he had only gone to see Miss Van Houten after receiving a written request from her. Judge Dell questioned Leslie outside the presence of the 2 attorneys. She remained firm in her resolve. She wanted Reiner. Part literally begged Judge Dell to listen to the tape he had made with Leslie. Part said, "That girl's insane in a way that is almost science fiction." Judge Dell said he would rather not hear the tape. He was concerned with one issue only, whether Miss Van Houten's mental state was such that she couldn't intelligently make a substitution of counsel. To determine this, he appointed 3 psychiatrists to listen to the tape and examine Leslie, their confidential report on the single issue to be made directly to him. Manson himself appeared before Judge Dell on the 17th. "Manson, I have a motion here. It's a strange motion, probably never been a motion like this ever before." The court says, "Try me." After examining it, the judge had to agree. It certainly is an interesting document. Charles Manson, also known as Jesus Christ's prisoner, assisted by 6 other propers who called themselves the Family of Infinite Soul Incorporated, have filed a habeas corpus motion on behalf of Manson Christ, charging that the sheriff was depriving him of his spiritual, mental, and physical liberty in an unconstitutional manner, not in harmony with man's or God's law, and asking that he be released forthwith. Judge Dale denied the motion. Manson says, "Your Honor, behind the big words and all the confusion and the robes, you hide the truth." The court, "Not intentionally." Manson, "Like sometimes I wonder if you know what's going on." The court, "Sometimes I do, Mr. Manson. I admit there is some self-doubt. Yet we in the black robes do our thing too." Manson requested a number of items, a tape recorder, unlimited telephone privileges, and so on, which he claimed both the sheriff's office and the DA's office were denying him. Dell corrected him. The court said, "The prosecutor is willing to go further than the sheriff has, as a matter of fact." Manson says, "Well, I was going to ask him if he would call the whole thing off. It would save a lot of trouble." The court says, "Disappoint all these people? Never, Mr. Manson." When Manson again appeared before Judge Dell on the 28th, he was still complaining about the limitations of his per privileges. For example, he wanted to interview Robert Busolele, Linda Kasabian, and Sadie Mae Glatz, but their attorneys had denied permission. Judge Dell informed him that they had that right. Manson says, "I got a message from Sadie. She told me that the district attorney had made her say what she had said." Manson was playing to the press, certain that they would pick up the charge, and they did. It was the next best thing to calling Susan on the phone and telling her how to recant. Aaron played out her bluff, stating that the people were prepared to go to trial. Manson, to our relief, wanted more time. Judge Dell assigned the case to Judge William Keene and granted a continuance to February 9th, at which time the trial date would be set. Let's see how long this is. Okay. Our relief was real. Not only was our case so weak, Aaron and I couldn't even agree on the motive. The prosecution does not have the legal burden of proving motive, but motive is extremely important evidence. A jury wants to know why. Just as showing that a defendant had a motive for committing a crime is circumstantial evidence of guilt, so is the absence of motive circumstantial evidence of innocence. Take a drink. I'll go back, Nancy. In this case, even more than in most others, proving motive was important, since these murders appear completely senseless. It was doubly important in Manson's case, since he was not present when the murders took place. If we could prove to the jury that Manson, and Manson alone, had a motive for these murders, then this would be very powerful circumstantial evidence that he also ordered them. Aaron and I had been friends for a long time. We had developed a mutual respect that allowed us to say exactly what we felt, and quite often our discussions were heated. This one was no exception. Aaron thought that we should argue that the motive was robbery. I told him quite frankly that I felt his theory was ridiculous. What had they stolen? $71 from Abigail Folger? Rosemary LaBianca's wallet, which they ditched, money intact, possibly a sack of coins and a carton of chocolate milk. That was it. As far as we knew, nothing else had been taken from either residence. There was, the police reports reiterated, no evidence of ransacking or theft. Items worth thousands of dollars, though, in plain view, were left behind. As an alternative motive, Aaron suggested that maybe Manson was trying to get enough money to bail out Mary Bruner, the mother of his child, who had been arrested on the afternoon of August 8th for using a stolen credit card. Again, I played the devil's advocate. 7 murders, 5 one night to the next, 169 separate stab wounds, words written in the victim's own blood, a knife stuck in the throat of one victim, a fork in his stomach, and the word war carved on his stomach, all to raise $625 bail. It wasn't that we lacked a motive, though Aaron and LAPD disagreed with me. I felt we had one. It was just that it was almost unbelievably bizarre. When I interviewed Susan Atkins on December 4th, she told me the whole thing was done to instill fear in the establishment and cause paranoia, also to show the black man how to take over the white man. This, she said, would be the start of Helter Skelter, which, when I questioned her before the grand jury the next day, she defined as the last war on the face of the earth. It would be all the wars that have ever been fought, built one on top of the other. There was a so-called motive behind all this, Susan wrote Ronnie Howard. It was to instill fear into the pigs and to bring on Judgment Day, which is here now for all. Judgment Day, Armageddon, Helter Skelter to Manson, they were one and the same, a racial holocaust which would see the black man emerge triumphant. The karma is turning. It's Blackie's turn to be on top. Danny DeCarlo said Manson preached this incessantly. Even a near stranger such as biker Al Springer, who visited Spawn Ranch only a few times, told me he thought Helter Skelter must be Charlie's pet words. He used them so often. That Manson foresaw a war between the blacks and the whites was not fantastic. Many people believe that such a war someday occur. What was fantastic was that he was convinced that he could personally start the war himself, that by making it look as if blacks had murdered the 7 Caucasian women, or 7 Caucasian victims, he could turn the white community against the black community. We knew there was at least one secondary motive for the Tate murders. As Susan Atkins put it in the Calaveras tape, the reason Charlie picked that house was to instill fear into Terry Melcher because Terry had given us his word on a few things and never came through with them. But this was obviously not the primary motive, since according to Greg Jacobson, Manson knew that Melcher was no longer living at 10050 Cielo Drive. All the evidence we'd assembled thus far, I felt pointed to one primitive motive, Helter Skelter. It was far out, but then so were the murders themselves. It was admittedly bizarre, but from the first moment I was assigned to the case, I felt that for murders as bizarre as these, the motive itself would have to be almost equally strange, not something you'd find within the pages of a textbook on police science. The jury would never buy Helter Skelter, Aaron said, suggesting that we offer something they would understand. I told him it would take me 2 seconds to dump the whole Helter Skelter theory if he could find another motive in the evidence. Aaron, however, was right. The jury would never accept Helter Skelter as is. We were missing far too many bits and pieces and one all-important link. Presuming that Manson actually believed that he could start a race war with these acts, what would he, Charles Manson, personally gain by it? To this, I had no answer, and without it, the motive made no sense. Always think of the now. No time to look back. No time to say how. The rhyme was repeated in almost every letter Sandy, Squeaky, Gypsy, or Brenda sent to the defendants. Its meaning was obvious. Don't tell them anything. Through a barrage of letters, telegrams, and attempted visits, the Manson girls tried to get Bugliosi, Atkins, and Kasabian to dump their present attorneys, repudiated any incriminating statements they may have made, and engage in a united defense. Though Buscemi agreed that the whole thing balances on whether the family stays together in their heads and doesn't break up and start testifying against itself, he decided, I'm going to keep my present lawyer. Bobby Buscemi had always been somewhat independent, less handsome than pretty. The girls had nicknamed him Cupid. Buscemi had bit parts in several movies, written music, formed a rock group, and had his own harem, all before meeting Manson. Leslie, Gypsy, and Kitty had all lived with Bobby before joining Charlie. Buscemi requested that Squeaky and the others not visit him so often. They were taking up all his visiting time when the person he really wanted to see was Kitty, who was expecting his child in less than a month. Buscemi wasn't the only one being pressured. Without Susan Atkins, the prosecution had no case against Manson, and Manson knew it. Family members called Richard Cavarello at all hours of the day and night. When cajoling didn't work, they tried threats. Less because of their pressure than that of his own client, Cavarello finally gave in and let some of the Manson girls, through not Manson himself, visit Susan. It was at best a holding action. At any moment, Susan could insist on seeing Charlie, and Cavarello would be unable to prevent it. After Susan's story had appeared in the Los Angeles Times, little signs had appeared on the walls at Silver Brand reading, Sadie Glutz is a snitch. This greatly upset Susan, and each time something like this happened, the scales seemed to tip a little more in Manson's favor. Manson was also aware that if Susan Atkins refused to testify at the trial, our only hope lay with Linda Kasabian. After a time, Linda's attorney, Gary Fleischman, refused to see Gypsy, so persistent had his visits become. If Linda didn't testify, Gypsy told him on numerous occasions everyone would get off. Fleischman didn't take her alone one time when he went to see his client. He did take her along one time when he did see his client. Gypsy told Linda in the presence of several persons that she should lie and say that on the nights of the Tate LaBianca murders, she had never left Spawn Ranch but remained with her at the waterfall. Gypsy promised to back up her story. Given a choice between Susan and Linda as the star witnesses for the prosecution, I much preferred Linda. She hadn't killed anyone. But in the rush to get the case to the grand jury, we made the deal with Susan, and like it or not, we were stuck with it, unless Susan bolted. Yes, this posed its own problems. If Susan didn't testify, we needed Linda, but without Susan's testimony, we had no evidence against Linda, so what could we offer her? Fleischman wanted immunity for his client, yet from Linda's standpoint, it would be better to be tried and acquitted than get immunity, testify against Manson and the others, and risk retribution by the family. We were very worried at this point. Exactly how worried is evidenced by a telephone call I made. After Manson had been indicted for the Tate LaBianca murders, the Inyo County authorities had dropped the arson charges against him. Though they had a strong case, I called Frank Fowles and asked him to refile the charges, which he did on February 6th. We were that afraid that Manson would be set free. All right, I am done reading for tonight.
Did good.
Yeah, I kind of screwed up some names. I know I did, but I keep forgetting to figure out what I'm supposed to be saying, but whatever. There's so many.
Yeah.
So let's try my best. At least I got Busalele, right?
It's Beausoleil.
Wow. Wow. God damn it. I knew I should have kept that goddamn book out. Beausoleil, not Beausoleil. So I did say it wrong. God damn it. Well, that was fun. No, I had it written down in like stupid terms. So that way, like you should see how I've got
like
Cielo
phonetically, yeah.
I've got Cielo written down as in C, like SEE, and then a capital L and a capital O.
That's not that's pretty good.
So I say it exactly like how I'm supposed to. Yeah, I wrote it down somewhere. I don't know where. Beausoleil, not Busalele. Jesus, Nicole Farron. You didn't fall asleep. Well, that's good. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, I should see what Brittany sent me.
I will back up to one of the comments where they were talking about the crime scene photos being leaked in the comments. Yeah. I will add, and this is just an example on how the effects of, can you hear my neighbor's power tools?
Yeah.
Sorry. No. Oh, okay. They'll come back on. Anyways, on how the effects of these crimes, they're damaging, like multi-generational. I'm not going to say which victim's family member or even like which victim they're the family of, but they had, so next generation down, it would have been their niece when their kids were being tormented about this case. And they used the crime scene photos and were sending them to her as a type of cyberbullying. This is definitely like the effects of this stuff is just, it's multi-generational. It doesn't stop when the trial ends or when the sentencing ends or.
Yeah.
Just saw a picture of your mom. She was she was very beautiful.
Yeah, she was. I love her mugshot. I think it's funny.
She's like, hey.
Yeah, I love it. Oops. So I'm just clicking on something. Brittany has sent me something that we could watch real quick. I just want to make sure. Oh, it's Diane Sawyer.
I might have.
Oh yeah, Diane Sawyer Meets Manson, Carmichael and Van. Yeah, okay, we should watch it. It's only like 9 minutes long.
They are out now. Oh, the photos, yes, the photos are out. Not the killers, but yeah, the photos.
Oh, are they?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen them. I don't think I want to see them. I don't know. It's You're welcome. I got to pick a new book soon. I'm thinking, wait, I'm almost, well, am I halfway? I think I'm actually well, that looks a little better. Just about. A few more pages and I'll be halfway through. I'm proud you didn't fall. Jan says, I'm proud you didn't fall asleep. My doctor gave me antibiotics and medicine for the summer. Crowd, I might fall asleep. Oh, I'm glad you guys are falling asleep on me. Then again, I've actually went on YouTube and I've listened to people read stories and I have fallen asleep. I actually use it for that.
I have Audible.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Audiobooks, and you can set a timer on it for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'll listen to it and fall asleep.
Yeah, I do that. See, I haven't tried listening to myself. I think that'd be really weird. But I feel like listening to you.
Yeah, I don't know about listening to yourself.
No. So I'll go and I'll see, like, what I'll do is I'll listen to like creepypastas and stuff like that, which is stupid, but I do it anyways because they're interesting, these stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem with how I do it is I'll wake up and I'll forget where it was where I actually fell asleep, and so I just back it up another 30 minutes, and I'll end up listening to that start like probably 4 or 5 times before I actually get past it.
That happens to me too, because like I drink so much water, so I'm always having to go to the phone booth. Actually, I'm gonna go right now. I'll be right back.
You go have fun in the phone booth. I'm gonna see if I have another photo that I could share real quick. Excuse me, please. Just I had it out on my desk a little bit ago, and then I set it aside so I wouldn't lose it, and of course I don't know where that was. Just a sec. Make sure I put it in between so it wouldn't get damaged. Oh. Dakota! Dakota! Puppy! Baby girl!
Dakota at it again.
Yep.
You listen to Swamp Dweller? I've not heard of that one. Oh, I accidentally gave myself a Canadian accent by listening to Big Brother Canada Live Feeds all night. Embarrassing but true. You know what I watch? I watch the other one, Celebrity Big Brother. I love it because they get the American people to come over, and it's just hilarious. I think, like, I don't know. Have you ever seen that one, Artsy? The Celebrity Big Brother?
I watched a little bit of Big Brother, like.
Yeah, it's just like that.
The very first season it ever came out, and then.
Oh, I love Celebrity Big Brother because it's hilarious. They had Michael Madsen on there. They had quite a few people on there. It's funny. They all get to stay in this house for, I think it's like 12 people. Yeah. It is funny though. I remember when Frenchie was on one. Oh my God, she. And then that other guy Leslie was in it. He's so funny. What are you showing?
Some dust under. Oh no, that's just shadow. I'm like, it's dirty. Don't look. No, it's a wrinkle. It's okay. But no, I was going to show a picture of my mom. So cool. This was when.
Hey, now.
So she was 17. She had dropped out of high school. She got both of her high school degree and was finishing college during the trials. So she's literally going and testifying and studying. And then she went and became a nurse. Yep.
That's a lot of work.
Yep.
And I'm assuming she'd be stressed right out too. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. So this is her nursing photo, and it's the old-fashioned.
Oh, really? Oh my God. You look like her.
I do. Yeah, I do a little bit.
Wow. No, you do. I can see. Oh my God, she's gorgeous.
So hard to try not to do this shine in there, but. light shine. Sorry, but yeah, that's
so
her.
pretty. I love that photo. It's really, oh, I do.
Yeah,
I have one of my great
at some point,
grandmother.
I'm gonna paint that.
Oh, do it. That would be amazing. Hey, Mare. No, it's okay. You're late. Nancy's got a question. Actually, I kind of want to know too. Did they ever find all the clothes, knives, and stuff connected to the Tate murders as evidence? Like, remember, I was just reading in the book how I still can't believe the cops didn't go there, and they went there, but they didn't find anything, and then they went back and they found a knife, but yeah, the cops didn't. It seems so botched, this whole case. Like, I don't think anybody knew what they were doing, or they just didn't give a shit. But did they find everything in that spot that they were supposed to? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
just
think just that little bit of what you read was pretty much what that was it. That's what they found.
yeah. Okay, so they did find that one knife, and they did find the clothes. I'm not sure if that was all of it or not. I'm assuming that would be the end of it. But then again, they had to the TV crew was the one who went back, was the ones that found it.
You love tiger lilies? Yeah, that's what I was.
Oh yeah, you're painting. You're painting. I actually have them growing in my backyard. Isn't that weird? Mm-hmm. They grow every year. Yeah. They're so cute.
Yeah, I could even show. They're all too big to show right now. I'd have to like take a picture of it and scan it in. But my mom was also a painter, so like mother, like daughter.
Yeah, that's what everybody's saying. You look just like her. You do. I'm gonna play that little clip here. It's about 9 minutes. It's about 9 minutes long.
Okay.
I'm gonna take an Advil for my throat.
I know you're busy there reading for like an hour, and I'm like sitting here on mute eating teriyaki.
Oh damn! You know what? Every single live I do turns into food. Every time. Every time. I actually got a recipe. I got sent a recipe in my comment section for Fruit Loop cheesecake. I'm gonna make it.
And you've never had huckleberries, huh?
No.
You need to try huckleberries. It's good. They're good.
Yeah, even Brady says you do look her. Oh my god, Nancy. She's like, note to self, if you ever use a gun, climb a tree, hanging up on a small branch. No one ever looks up, just saying.
They do now. They're better now. I think if you're a crime, you should have done it 50 years ago or more.
Yeah. I just can't believe how much stuff they screwed up on. Will you shush?
It's not mine. Not mine this time. Hi. Yeah, I'm talking about you, puppy. I'm talking about you. You're nutty.
All right, I'm going to mute myself and play this. Come on.
On a hot summer night in 1969, at a house on a hill overlooking Los Angeles, some of the same girls who once sang sweetly about souls locked in harmony unleashed Helter Skelter.
I ran her down, and I began to stab her.
Do you remember her screaming at you?
Yeah, I remember her saying, "I'm already dead."
The next morning, Jerry DeRosa
is up for parole now.
It was very quiet.
What'd you say?
So the host Krenwinkel, she's the one that's up for parole now.
Ah, okay. Everybody's fighting for that too, for her not to get out, though, aren't they?
Good, I'd hope so. I'd be shocked if she got out.
Yeah, me too.
But, I mean, weirder shit has happened.
And the only thing that I can recall hearing were the sound of the flies that were on the bodies.
DeRosa was one of the first to try to comprehend the savagery that brought an end to the decade of love.
The words pig were written in this area in blood on the front door, and the door was ajar.
A mocking salute written with the blood of a beautiful young actress named Sharon Tate.
What did you see when you came in?
A large amount of rope that was on the floor. One end was around Sharon Tate's neck, and then it looped up over the rafters here, came back down to the floor. She's been stabbed multiple times.
The next night, more murder in another part of town. A wealthy businessman, Lino LaBianca, and his wife, Rosemary.
I knew that people would die. I knew that there would be killing.
In all, 7 people were butchered in the Tate LaBianca murders. When the killers were finally arrested, among them 2 young girls with long hair and wide eyes, who said they did it with joy for a man named Charles Manson. This is how we remember them, frozen in time, laughing at murder. The girls the prosecutor called mutants, monsters. Pat Krenwinkel is now 46 years old. Leslie Van Houten, 45. They have spent almost 25 years in prison living with what they did.
I think that the violence in us is somehow nurtured and brought out and brought forth. You know, it didn't happen overnight. He spent a lot of time taking middle-class girls and remolding them.
I only did with Charlie Wanton. That was the whole thing.
I never told anybody to do anything other than what they wanted to do.
And if they wanted to do murder, that was okay
That was
with
none
you?
of my business, woman. I'm a convict. I'm an outlaw. I'm a rebel. I'm not a Sunday school teacher.
Charles Manson, now 60 years old, still wearing the swastika of defiance. His intensity a reminder of the power he once held over 2 ordinary girls from Southern California.
He is creepy as hell. Wow, like he scares me. I just stopped it for a minute just to say something real quick, and I'll go back just because I don't want to get like copyright. I'll probably get a copyright claim, but whatever, it's fine.
Are you playing it at a different speed?
Yeah, I am, but sometimes with stuff like this, what was I gonna say? Yeah, usually. So I did on another one. But I took out the part that was copyrighted. It was just, it was only like 30 seconds. So I probably, if I get one, I just have to take that. I just have to take it out, and then I can still keep this video monetized.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how creepy he is and how short he is. Like,
yeah, he's short.
He's a super short guy.
And see, I didn't really realize that until I was reading that in the book, where it said that he is short and that it would be hard to believe this little short man had control of all of these people.
Mm-hmm.
This person says, Barking at the Moon says, it would be great if you did Fatal Vision next. Jeff McDonald used the hippie perps from an article to say that was who unalived his pregnant wife and 2 little girls, and it really had no. Really? Is this new? Do you know anything about this, Artsy? Like, I don't think I've heard of it.
I haven't heard of that. Is that a different case?
Yeah, I guess so.
That sounds like something completely different now.
No, yeah, it's something completely different. I'm just trying to hear about it. Fatal Vision, Jeff McDonald. I can look into it, yeah. Jan wants to know if Barbara testified during the trial.
Yes, that'll be in the book too. A little bit of it.
Yeah.
Will be in the book. So I'll kind of do, I think is I'll tell more of my mom's story, like in whole, kind of at the end. But until then, it's just like kind of little bits and pieces as we go along that kind of fit like what she was doing now while this was happening, type of deal. But yeah, she did testify.
That would have been crazy scary. Wow. She's brave. Okay, it was in 1970 in February. Okay.
Patricia Krenwinkel's father was an insurance agent, her mother a homemaker. She was the plain, quiet girl who got average grades and sang in the glee club. In the summer of 1967, Krenwinkel was an 18-year-old secretary, living with her older half-sister and drifting into the new freedoms of the time.
I was smoking a lot of marijuana hash, and I had, at that time, I've already used acid a couple times.
Were you a bad girl?
No, I wasn't a bad girl. But at that time, drinking and using drugs did not seem unusual because I was doing it with my high school friends.
One afternoon, she visited a friend of her sister.
And Charlie was there, and he was playing the guitar. And so I was introduced to him there. He said he didn't have a place to stay, so my sister invited him to stay with us.
Clang, bang, clang, went the big iron door.
This is the voice of the man she met that day. Charles Manson, then age 32, amateur singer, songwriter, and ex-con.
9 other men in that cell.
Only 5.5 months earlier, he had walked out of prison after spending more than half his life behind bars. As a boy, he was booted around from foster homes to reform school. His mother had been in jail for robbery. His rap sheet included everything from forgery to pimping. For Charles Manson, Pat Krenwinkel was a very easy mark.
That night, we slept together, and I felt really loved by him. When we made love, all I remember is just crying and crying to this man because he said, "Oh, you're beautiful." I couldn't believe that. I just started crying.
You didn't believe that you were?
Oh, absolutely not. And then he would look at you and smile, and somehow I felt like, oh, I'm a part of this. I just started hanging on. I mean, it was like I couldn't believe that this wasn't real.
Your home is where you're happy.
2 days later, she quit her job and left with Manson to become part of the love generation he sang about.
What you are, 'cause you were just born free.
It wasn't so strange in 1967 to drive a bus, to give up all your clothes, you know, and going around and talk peace. A lot of times where you might have had someone say, "Don't you think what you're doing is odd?" Instead, we were always in places where people were saying, "Wow, can I join you?"
Leave your whole life behind.
It became the in thing to become bizarre, to go against.
See, when I see all that, I think these people are nuts. I can do that. He was a Green Beret doctor at Fort Bragg. I'll look into that.
Everything you'd ever been taught.
For Krenwinkel, that meant sharing Manson's bed with other girls, like the daughter of an aeronautical engineer, Lynette Squeaky Fromm.
It was awkward, but it easily became familiar.
Did you ever contact your parents?
No, I didn't. I was cutting off my past, and very, very almost systematically, you start in my own brain. It was like, I can't go back.
Leslie Van Houten was also becoming restless with the conventions of suburban middle-class life.
The homecoming princess who sang in the church choir.
Yeah,
Remember her?
yeah. A little bit, yeah.
You had a good family life. There was trouble in the family when your father left. But you had so much going for you then.
I seemed to want more living out of life than what was expected of young girls at that time. Drugs, sex, you know, breaking away from the norm.
A year after graduation, she heard about Charles Manson.
That he was like Christ, and he had the answers, and that I just really needed to go and meet him.
And when you first saw him?
For as twisted as it all got, you know, I really think that I felt that I had met someone that by being around him would have a positive change.
By 1968, Manson and about 25 followers were camping out on a ranch north of Los Angeles. They provided care for the 80-year-old owner and his horses in exchange for living space.
You don't call it a family, I know, but the group of you, what was the main thing that it was about with all of you?
One day at a time. We played a lot of music. We wrote. We did a lot of things, but we lived today. We lived in the day and the now.
You could absolutely not talk about your past at all.
And one thing we didn't have is watches. The whole idea was to let time disappear. There was no time.
We gave up our birthdays.
What you are seeing is rare footage.
They gave up their birthdays? Wow. Even the songs are creepy. It's like the stuff of nightmares, whatever the hell we were just listening to for those 2 seconds. Wow.
Yeah, they gave up their names. They gave, they gave up everything.
Manson's followers in 1969. The song is sung by some of Manson's girls. To them, life at the ranch seemed like a game. Liberate yourself, lose yourself in Charlie.
It was so wonderful that it scared us.
One of his things was to stop you during the day, and he'd put your palms up to his, and then he'd move them in any direction that he could. or he'd make a series of faces, and then you were supposed to try to keep up with them. And the whole thing was always geared toward just complete mirroring of him.
And they would sit as a group, naked, for countless hours, taking acid trips. Manson would pass out the LSD and reinforce his.
I'm sorry, I had to laugh at that. They would sit around naked for hours taking acid. Can you imagine? Oh my god. That's crazy. Sounds like this. Yeah, the song from Freddy Krueger. Hey, Bellcat. Oh my god. That was creepy though, the one it sounded like the kids were singing. What? I'll admit, will admit to y'all, I'm an old hippie. I've lived communal life. How was it? I don't know. I don't judge on that type of thing. I think it'd be kind of neat for a while. As long as it's not like a cult.
In California in the 60s, there's literally hundreds. So as weird as, we're kind of watching this and seeing them all, like, what are they doing? It's weird that they're living like that. There's hundreds. That was normal. That not the killing part. Don't get me wrong there. No, but just everybody was running away. It was safe to hitchhike.
Yeah.
You had the Vietnam War, so people thinking the world's ending and going to hell, like, kind of fit with what was being supported and what was going on around them.
They were going with the times. That's what it was at the times. Yeah, I totally get that.
And since it's the 60s, the generation back is the 40s. Do you remember, oh gosh, what's that movie with Julia Roberts where she's teaching girls in the... Hold on. She goes to a school and teaches, I think it was in the 40s or the 50s.
Oh, I don't know if
it has Maggie Gyllenhaal. She teaches an art class and she thinks she's teaching independent.
I've seen Dangerous Minds, but that's not what you're talking about. Yeah, I'd love to have experienced Mona Lisa Smile.
Yes, there we go. So that, if you kind of go and watch that movie, because I, when I was doing my own studies on, the different decades and how they influence that movie, that's the parents. So that's what their kids were kind of running away from.
Ah, that'll be neat.
You see the old commercial, the the old ads and stuff where the wife is, in heels and a dress and just cooking dinner and so that's what they were trying to escape, was that kind of stereotype of the 50s. And
oh, that makes sense then. Now look at us. Everything is the internet.
I know, right?
It's all the internet. Like I was telling my brother the other day, I was like, yeah, I got my own YouTube channel. He's like, of course you do. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, it's the way it is. He goes, of course. And he goes, let me guess, you get paid? I'm like, yeah, not very much, but I do. I mean, it's the only income I have. He's like, he goes, no, I'm not being rude. He goes, it's just the way it is. It's the day and the times. That's what it is. Internet is everywhere. So why not have a channel? I was like, yeah. Then, of course, he's like, it's because you're too lazy to work. So I smacked him. Nancy says, I had a friend I went to school with that did that, the late 70s. She hitchhiked across the U.S., lived in a commune. See, that would have been, I think that sounds actually pretty cool. Except the only problem I have is the uncertainty. That's the only thing for me. It's just the uncertainty and not knowing. But the not knowing I also would like as well. So I don't know if I could do that. I don't know. Obviously, I can't and I won't because of my son. But I'm just saying, if I was completely single, I had no responsibilities. I don't know. I wouldn't, maybe. I'd take it into consideration. Travel the world. I'd love that. It was the generation after World War II. Yeah. We're the grandchildren of those people. Yeah. Your acid comment? Let me see your acid comment. done days naked on acid, even living under a blanket we called the bean in the 1980s. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh, now I'm hungry. Thinking of that chicken. If I had a channel, it would take me a week before I got myself into how you know what, Mara? I believe it.
I believe it too because I've heard her on Discord.
Holy shit, can she go off, right?
Too.
Oh yeah, not at us, but if you piss Mara off, look out. Like, look out. I wouldn't want to be you. Don't come after people she loves. Just don't. Oh. Definitely always good to have Mara as a friend. Always.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
All right, you crazy kids got any questions or anything before I end this? I want to get Mara on here one time. Chicken tenders and coleslaw. Brittany's like, Mare loves me. Trust me, it's a good thing.
Keep it that way so you're safe.
Yeah. Mare's like, these people on YouTube piss me off sometimes. Well, hell, most of the time. Oh, I know. Oh my god, I've been there when she rants. It's like, oh my god. You have a huge heart. And you're Canadian too, so just like me. I don't know. Must be a Canadian thing too. And I'm a Pisces. We care a lot.
I have a feeling you might hear power tools in the background every time.
I heard something.
Still going. It's like
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make something to eat real quick.
I'm kind of surprised at how loud that is because he's, I've got a big backyard and an alley, and he's over one. He sounds like he's right at my window.
Right there. Yeah, it sounds like somebody's outside, just outside your house, looking on a window or something.
Here, close a window. Do that.
I'm sorry, Screaming at Ether. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. What will be my next book to read? I don't know. I'm thinking stick to true crime. I just love this stuff. It fascinates me. I was thinking maybe the next one I was thinking about doing is Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. That one's a Canadian one. The Barbie and Ken murders. Yeah, I'm sure some of you guys have heard of it at least. They're sick though. Oh my god. Well, thank you, Screaming Ether. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's hard to lose.
Yeah. Teresa was telling me that the other day at the store. I was like, holy shit, that is horrible. Same age too? Oh my god. You never heard of it? No? I'm gonna see. I think I got a few books on it.
Mary, you're Capricorn. I can see that. A lot of my family are Capricorns, and actually including my mother.
Holy, I really need to look through my books. I have quite a few. I even have the one on Mary Kay Letourneau.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness.
I've got I've got quite a few. Probably have a book if anybody has a suggestion. I read every night. Barbie and Ken. Nope, that's what they called them. Barbie and Ken. Yeah, they're from St. Catharines. That's right near Toronto in Canada, in Ontario. Yeah. My mom actually met him. She was a manager at a restaurant, and he walked in, and yeah, so she had met him, and somebody else told me another story about knowing this idiot, and it was like, holy. You give it so fast. Oh, it's sad. Oh. Yeah, it's called, I don't know, just look up Paul Bernardo or Carla Homolka. Even just reading of it, oh, it was horrible what they did. It's really bad though, so I don't know if I should, because it's like really bad. It's a little bit of incest in one part. These girls are young, like 14 years old, so it is. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. It is.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just thinking. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't, because it is really bad. Because I had a hard time getting over it reading it the first and second time. So yeah, maybe I should just back away for a while. Just not do that one.
Scream into ether, you're an Aquarian. I'm an Aquarius too.
I'm
Go
a
Aquarius.
Pisces. We're the biggest babies. We love too much. And I'm Canadian, so it's like big heart. I have a huge heart. Breaks easy. I take things way too seriously. Yeah, exactly. You never know how close we come to evil people every day. No, not at all.
It's amazing how small the world is.
Yeah. Irish people have tempers too, don't they? A little bit of Irish, or is it? Wait, maybe the wrong one. Scottish. My bad.
No, Irish. Irish too.
Is it Irish?
But really, if you think about it, like everybody, like I've heard that said about Italians. I've heard that said about Greeks. Don't piss off a Greek. Don't piss off this man.
Yeah.
About like every.
Yeah, like if you're Italian, look the fuck out, sort of thing. And then if you're this, yeah, true, right?
Could I say everybody except Canadians? So.
I know. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous, but that's just who I am too, I guess. And me with being a Pisces, I did like a little test. I took a course, and it was about colors, like whether you're an orange, a gold, or you're a green or a blue. And I was a blue, and the blue was like the biggest wussy out there. They've got big hearts. They care way too much, just basically what I'm describing. Whereas the gold was very smart and very organized. And the green was just, they were kind of off in their own world. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of different things, but it was pretty neat. I'll have to look at that again. I thought it was really cool. I worked in a grocery store bagging, and when people came through with a steak knife, tarp, rope, and ice, you often wondered, right? I'd be called. See, you know what I would do? Just because, again, I care too much. I would call the police and tell them. I'd be like, look, I don't know about you, but I feel like this is like a murder kit. So I think you need to check this person out. I would. Oh my God. It'd probably be nothing, but I'd rather that than having it something. Germans are the worst. Except usually it goes like Irish women or Latina women, etc. Know what I mean? Women get the bad reps. Yeah. We Slovaks are accused of starting a war, then walking away. That's what my husband's side, who was German, told me. Go figure. Oh. All right, you guys have a great night. I'm going to make something to eat, and then I'm going to eat it, and then I'm going to bath my dog because I think it's time. He's a Shih Tzu, so you not only have to cut his hair all the time, but you got to bath the little bastard too. And he gets itchy skin. He's allergic to grain and stuff like that, and he's been scratching a lot today, so I'm going to give him a bath. I got this nice, what is it called? Tea tree oil and oatmeal shampoo for him to help him.
Oh, poor puppy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to take him back to the vet because it's still, like, he needs almost steroids, I guess you can call them, for allergies. Because this is all new. He's never had it before. All right, you guys have a great night. I am going to, bath my dog, trim him, do his little nails. That's always fun. Well, he lets me, though. He's pretty good at that. I'd rather do it myself than bring him anywhere. So I'm going to do that and eat something with chicken. All right. Thank you for coming on, Artsy.
You're welcome. See you
Good
later.
night.
Good night.